idea.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, are we audible?
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, you're audible.
Thank you. Yes.
So let's begin. Should we begin the class?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
I'll be chanting and then we'll start meditation. And so let us begin our meditation. So we sit straight, keep our eyes closed, and remove these specs. There's no need to keep these specs on because it acts as a burden on the nose and other areas. We check first if there is any tension anywhere in the body. Our feet are properly resting on the ground, sitting properly. Both the feet are on the ground. One foot is not dangling. Hands are in the resting comfortably. There's no tension in any muscles. The shoulder is not tense, so we drop it down. Extend the spinal cord to the largest length so that it becomes vertical. And then keep our attention in the area around the nostrils and try to feel the breath as it naturally comes in and naturally goes out. With minimal efforts, just being the observer and letting the awareness of the breath arise naturally. I don't get tense. Oh, I can't see the breath. Why is the breath taking so much time? No such thoughts in a relaxed manner. Just waiting for the awareness to arise naturally. In order to focus our attention more, we try to note some details of the breathing process, whether the incoming breath is short or long, the outgoing breath is short or long. And next, secondly, through which nostril or nostrils the respiratory process is happening. It can keep on changing. Breath may go through one nostril, come out through other, or come out through the same, and it will go through both the nostrils. There's no preference for us. We're just trying to note it so that our mind does not go here and there. Once the mind is given a task, the chances of its going distracted are reduced. So you can do that to ensure that the mind remains with the breath for long periods of time. If some of you are still working on the noting the breathing process in the belly, then please slowly try to synchronize it with the breath going in and out through the nostrils, and then shift your attention to the area around the nostrils. How many of you are able to work on the area around the nostril? Can you gently raise your hand so that I know? Okay, thank you. Another expedient means is to observe very attentively the whole respiration process. Right from the moment breath starts to enter, is entering, and then you will notice it stops for a few moments. So be with that awareness of the breath having stopped. And then it will start coming out, coming out, coming out, and then we'll stop at the outlet also. Again for a few moments, and then the breathing will again start. So in this way, your mind becomes more concentrated, and you also know the nature of the breath constantly changing. Sometimes long, sometimes short, sometimes through left nostril or right nostril. Sometimes stoppage time is more on out breath, less on in breath. Sometimes it is vice versa. So you can see the whole process happening. And the attention can be kept constantly on the breath so that our concentration rises and mind becomes tranquil. Good. So you can open your eyes, relax for a few minutes, and then we'll start. Gently open your eyes. We have been discussing about perception. So, two terms because of the importance of it in terms of our daily life and in terms of the practice of psychology, of counseling, clinical psychology, of acting as an advisor for conflict resolution. Because in most of the practical situations, we find conflicts have their origin in difference of perception. So we saw last time this understood the how perception of young people about what should be wife, what should be husband. Are you able to hear or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you can see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So last time we did this up to this. Now I think we'll quickly conclude this section with some examples. So this also I had shown you roughly, but we can discuss it further. How do you form perception about people based on their clothes, how they look, presence or absence of beard, or the perfume they use, food they eat, the tone and pitch of the voice? Can you see this? That these are some of them, and there are obviously many other things. These are some of the appearances, really, on the basis of which we form perceptions of people. Can you give some examples, anybody? So that I know that we're on the same page. You're understanding what I'm saying. Can you give some examples of this or any other example? Illustrate how perceptions are formed on just on some certain appearances.
So giving money to a beggar.
Okay. What is the perception involved there?
Sir, like if a person with dressed very properly, we probably and asking money from us, we probably wouldn't be thinking of giving money to them. But if there's probably a child or a lady or a handicapped person who is asking money, just by looking at them at their appearances, we would probably offer them money. So that is through appearances, we are judging that whether like we should or should not help them.
Okay. Any other? On this very example, can you have another perception that if a child is coming and you're in a car waiting at a red light and child comes and asks for something, should we give money? Should we not give money? And there be a different perception.
Yes, sir.
For example, what an example?
So, like, it's also a perception that in cases like these, the child is being involved in some trafficking or something like that. The perception that we have that there are groups of people and they're involved in human trafficking and probably child abuse. So, in a way, it's kind of That's why probably it's advised not to offer money in such a circumstance, because it kind of feeds the whole system and something like that.
Okay. Any other example? Any other example? Let's say a few examples so that of the various sense doors, no? Smell, taste, touch, sound.
Like a person comes dressed up in a western kind of a modern attire, and we would in say an organizational setup, so we would probably perceive the person to be speaking in English, but if the person starts speaking in a regional language, that would probably totally kind of go against what we would conventionally perceive.
Okay. Any other example?
As it is written in last point, through the people whom we know very properly, then from the tone of their voice, we just come to know that whether they are in a good mood or in a bad mood, or something has happened, or they are very happy or excited. If we know them properly.
Okay. But if you have two people, you meet two strangers, one of them speaks in a soft tone, other speaks in a raised pitch. What perceptions do you form?
So, softer tone person is polite, and the high pitched person is very rude, probably.
And is it necessary that this may be true?
No, sir. No, sir.
So, what I'm pointing out is the perceptions can be diverse. A person who is praising you may be having an ulterior motive. A person who is soft spoken may have a sinister mind. Say about the perfume, for example. You know how much research goes in. How do they decide what is the perfume for a woman and what is the perfume for a man? How does it one decide? What's the basis? No chemical, no chemical will say this is for women and this is for men. Who decides that? And what is the basis? It's a $1 billion industry in the world. And have you seen the ads of perfumes?
Yes, sir.
So what do they convey? What perception is kind of embedded in those ads?
When you use
Hmm?
that, using a good perfume will make you attractive and will make people like you.
So we've got some examples of perceptions. Now the question was, examine when and how did this perception form? In your personal case, suppose I ask you to write down, see if you see a person dressed like this, or a person looking like that, or using a particular perfume, or eating a particular kind of food, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, or some, some other
That-
food.
So
How did
sometimes,
this perception form?
so sometimes our previous experiences form those. Like if we came across a person who was speaking softly and was also polite, like we knew that we are polite, we had some experiences with them, that made us realize that yes, this is this kind of person. So next time that we're gonna face or we come across some person who's speaking like that only, like softly or something, so we'll attribute those personality traits or those qualities to the other person also.
So you can see how our conditioning and past experiences, memories really reflect in the perception, and then many times they will be wrong. So the conditionality of perception and its provisional nature. Perceptions can change with time. There is a perception that green revolution was a wonderful thing. Today it is seen as a villain which has destroyed the crops, destroyed the soil. That has happened only because of the experience. Not it was not evident in the beginning. The same thing happens with our friends. You assume somebody is a friend, and then you find over time that the person has some other agendas hidden in the friendship. This happens all the time with politicians. So then the question arises, how many types of perceptions there are? You remember in Vedana, in feelings, I had said there are 6 types of feelings. So I'm putting here, there are 6 types of perceptions or sanya. No, I'm trying to use that word because of to make you familiar with these Pali terms. So when I say there are 6 types of sanya, what do you think would it be referring to?
The perceptions that we form due to six forms of senses.
So there would be perception about form. So looking at the physical form or colors, you form an opinion. This is beautiful, this is not beautiful, this is good, this is not good. So that's called perception of form, or you call it a roop sanya, roop meaning the form. Then there is perception about sound, shabda sanya, or shabd keh sakte hain. Pali word is sadda sanya, perception about sound. If you listen to certain sounds, you may find them musical. Somebody else may find what you call as musical, somebody else may find it trash. He may find it noise. And what some people will say is beautiful, very mellifluous, you may say it's just shouting and sound, noise and noise. So that's how if you form perceptions about sound, then about smell. And this you've seen, different perceptions about different kinds of smells. Then taste. And about taste, you know how much variability it is from person to person, and for the same person as he or she uh, grows in age. Perceptions keep on changing. What food you may like in young age, you may not like as you grow old.
But also, like when we eat something sweet and then we eat something else that is also sweet, then uh, originally if we ate the second dish, we might have got the sweet taste, but after eating something sweet, previously it changes the taste. Matlab, we don't perceive it as that sweet.
That's true. Yeah. That's only because of the immediate past memory there, which lingers in the mind. And taste buds have their certain time required for reactivation. Similarly, about touch. And touch has a very powerful impact, in our life. Touch of opposite gender can mean so many things. When you touch your sibling, when you touch your parent, and when you touch your boyfriend or girlfriend, there's a meaning in it. There's a different perception associated with different touches. So you form perception. This kind of touch is good. This kind of touch is not good. This is the touch of uh, filial affection. This is the touch of sensual attraction. This is the touch of a parent. This is the touch of a child. And we interpret them differently. Then there's perception about thoughts, which is called Dhammasanya. Pottabba in Pali means touch, sparsh in Hindi. Dhamma means the general mental content, the perception about various kinds of thoughts. Thoughts of anger, or thoughts of violence, or thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of doing good to others, thoughts of goodwill, or thoughts of ill will. We have different perception about them, and they influence our lives. So you can see they are all unique. When we interact with the world outside, it's not that you only see the form, you also hear something, you also smell something, and you may get kind of conflicting perceptions. You may see a person in a certain dressed in a certain way, but the perfume he has used may be very attractive, or the smell which is coming from his rotten clothes may be very repelling. When you hear certain words, the words may be very harshly spoken, but the meaning of the words may be very touching. So you can see the implications of understanding these different perceptions and seeing how they kind of influence our overall behavior. And what are they going to influence? The perceptions. I had mentioned it earlier. They're going to influence what feeling arises on that sensory interaction. See, we're studying the process of interaction with the world. So when I interact with some object or some person, I come across the person's form, I come across the person's sound and maybe smell, maybe touch. And based on all of them, I form an opinion. And based on each one of them, there will be a corresponding uh, feeling which may arise. If the perception is of a pleasant kind, feeling will be pleasant. If the perception is that is threatening, the feeling will be unpleasant. So the perception works in a behind the scenes in affecting the kind of feeling we get when we interact with the world. And all of these perceptions are conditioned. That's very important to understand. They're not right in any normative sense. There's nothing like a right perception in these matters. But then the question arises, is there no absolutely right perception? This is what I had asked last time and stopped, hoping that you would give some thought to this question. Anybody having any idea? Is there anything which you can say, this is the right perception about the world, about the things, about beings, anything, about forms, about sounds, about smells? This perception is absolutely right. There's no denial of that. Anything you can say?
If someone penetrates every layer of perception, then probably we can say that the person has a right perception. Earlier, when we were talking in the class, you mentioned that through meditation, or someone said like through meditation or with right practices, someone can, through eyes only, someone can see the molecules of any object. When we were saying that the object that we see around, it's not just in the matter, but also the molecules and the atom involving into it.
Okay, you're looking at perception arising due to limitations of senses. Okay, that is its value, but those are kind of esoteric things which not everybody can do, isn't it? But there are some things which are so evident.
Maybe how
Say it again.
maybe how everything is connected. So a lot of the practices that we come across in various spiritual traditions. So one of the concluding remarks of those practices is probably how everything is connected: nature, the inanimate matter, the animate matter, nature, beings of all kinds. So and to be able to say it is one thing, but to be able to actually experience it and realize it, that actually everything is connected, is probably that comes something that comes after a lot of practice and after a like a certain amount of kind of but penetrating beyond the layers, as Simran was talking about. So that principle of connection maybe, and the principle of there being something higher um, than how we perceive in our day-to-day things. Maybe these perceptions can be said to be
So you're
absolute.
saying the perception of interconnectedness is something which seems to you to be true, right perception. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. About of interconnectedness and about there being some higher, higher something beyond, yeah, the very material things.
Yeah, I would suggest that that's may or may not be true. Yeah, I'm talking of some things which are so um, which have a direct psychological bearing. Okay, which have a bearing on our understanding of the suffering. Because Buddha's teachings are all given toward that, which I think is the moot question in all psychological counseling or psychological studies or investigations or treatment, whatever you want to term it. So, from the perspective of that, each of these perceptions, can you make one statement that this is true of every perception, and which you can
For
see?
the very,
Yes, go
for
ahead.
the very perception that no perception is absolute, maybe that everything is in our mind, like based on whatever we have read in all the previous classes, the perception of all the perceptions being temporary and not absolute is the right perception, and going beyond it and seeing it like it's all in our mind only. Both ways, Shayan.
Okay, let me reduce more thinking. The first perception, which is said to be a correct perception, as taught in the meeting Buddha, is called perception of impermanence, incessant change. Okay. And this applies across the board to everything in the world. Everything. Animate, inanimate, mountain, river, human beings, animals, everything. Constant change is happening. So this is called perception of impermanence or anicca. Do you realize this? Anybody who can say no, there is something which is permanent? Now, this we know directly, but we don't reflect it in that manner. That's the point. We know it, yeah, this is true. There's nothing whatsoever in this world which we interact with which is permanent. Mountains also change, earth will also change, planets will change. They are changing slowly, slowly, every moment. Human body is constantly changing every moment. Everything is changing all the time. Our thoughts are changing, our feelings are changing, our perceptions are changing, body is changing, our actions are changing, consciousness is changing, Eyesight is changing, seeing is changing, hearing is changing, everything. So this is called a anicca sanya. It is a correct perception. And whatever is correct perception is called as and part of wisdom. This is where wisdom lies. Understanding that everything is constantly changing. And what does change imply? For human beings, for live sentient beings, it implies death, ultimately, the ultimate change. So recognizing the certainty of death, that's called marana sanya. I didn't want to not put it that separately. That's also a part of impermanence. That one day all of us will die. That one day we'll be separated from our near and dear ones. Nobody is exempt. Now you may say, yeah, that's okay. But if you reflect deeply, you'll see that there is a tremendous value in this perception. Our suffering most of the time happens because we want things to be permanent. A mother wants that her children should stay with her and constantly be as docile as they were as the small children. As the children grow, as the boys go, girls grow, they try to become independent. They have a different thinking, and the parents get very worried. Hey, you've changed. Of course, that change is the law of nature. It's a common statement we hear when young boys get married. Mothers would say, "You change. You're becoming more attached to your wife, and you're not taking care of parents." Well, that's it. That's the law of nature, of course. Change is a law of nature, and therefore, if in examination I fail, that also is a law of nature, and if I succeed, that also is. That can happen. Sometimes I may fail, sometimes I may succeed, and there are conditions of both. Some things are within my control, some things are not. Now, this, if you understand it deeply and see, the Buddha points that just by this understanding and reflecting it deeply, you'll get liberated. Because one of the root causes of suffering, and he calls it one of the very root delusions, he uses the word vipallasa. The delusion is that things which are impermanent, we want them to be permanent. Human, nothing is permanent, and we want things to be permanent. I want things to remain, pleasant things to remain as they are, and they remain in the same way. And then I suffer. Oh, this my spouse behaved like that. My husband is changed. He was so nice in the beginning. My wife has changed. He was so nice in the beginning. Yeah, that's the law of nature. It's bound to happen. You do whatever you can do about salvaging relationships, but there's nothing abnormal about change. That's the way it is. You can see how important it is in the process of coming out of life's difficulty. In understanding the difficulties called with life, what you call as betrayal and have let down, and people have become careless and they're not taking care of me, and all kinds of complaints. Also, most of the complaints arise from this wish that things should not change. But the law, this is a hard fact of nature. Impermanence, anicca sanya is there. Does it make sense? Any critique of that?
Sir, a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So some schools of thought talk about the same thing, that everything is temporary and there is change, but about the matter of what they call soul or consciousness, or so they talk about that in terms of rebirth, that is something that is the real sort of your true nature, and that um, carries on and that remains. So
Yeah,
what they
that's a good metaphysics. That's a good metaphysics. Have you, is the soul experienced by any of the 5, 6 senses? Can be seen, heard, smelled, tasted, touched, or thought about? Yeah, you can. It's an imagination. I'm talking of thought in the sense of based on experience. It's a hypothesis which is given. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
Yes.
But it's not something which is within the domain of normal experience. That's why I said I'm talking of normal experience of all of us. And whether the soul is permanent or not, it's not a cause of my suffering. My suffering is the fact that the things which I hear, smell, taste, touch, own, they keep on changing. And I don't want them to change. I don't want my laptop to get spoiled. I want it to remain as it is when I purchased it in the first time. I don't want my friends to become estranged from me. I don't want that weather should change. I want that weather should remain pleasant all the time. I don't want that body should fall ill. I want it should remain healthy all the time, as it was sometimes. So we're talking of things which have a bearing on our life directly as we live, as empirical scientific people. I'm not denying whether soul exists or not, so please don't think that. What I'm saying is that the existence of soul or non-existence of soul is not related to my suffering. This is the point which Buddha mentioned, and I think any phenomenologist will agree. That's why Buddha is called a radical phenomenologist. But there's not really of importance to it. It's not a phenomena which happens appear, which helps me in any way. And okay, if there is a soul, thank you very much. Nice. But soul is not causing me to suffer. Do you understand that?
Yes.
See, it's a very Buddha's teachings are extremely uh, direct, and they don't get into unnecessary debates at the level at which most metaphysical speculations operate. I'm not able to hear. Please say it clearly.
Yes, sir, we get it.
Yes.
Oh, somebody was saying something which I think maybe you're talking amongst yourselves.
So that voice is coming from outside the room. There's some hustle going on.
Okay. So it's adjoining room.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let me put another correct perception, and this may be even more difficult to call unsatisfactoriness. There's no abiding satisfaction in anything in this world. So this which is often used to blame Buddha's teachings as pessimistic, and please note the words which are carefully used. It's called dukkha sanya. So because of the understanding of dukkha in Hindi and in normal Indian languages, we say, but that's not true. There is dukkha, but there is sukha also. He's not denying that. But he's saying it's not abiding, it doesn't last long. Because of the impermanent nature of all experiences, it becomes unsatisfactory. It doesn't last long. And there's nothing, no experience, no thing, no relationship, no power, no anything which will give you permanent abiding satisfaction because of the very nature of impermanence. So it is in a sense, it follows from first that you cannot get abiding satisfaction from worldly pursuits. Pretty strong statement now. Through the interaction with the senses, you cannot get any abiding satisfaction because they are impermanent. The objects are impermanent, the senses are impermanent, the feelings which they create are impermanent. The perception on the basis of which feelings form there is impermanent. So there's no way that you can get a permanent abiding satisfaction by anything in this world. Now you can see when the statement is made in that manner, how strong this statement becomes. It challenges our core beliefs. Because all of us, to varying degrees, think that we'll get satisfaction in the world only. We'll do this way, that way, do some adjustments in our life, and we'll be ever happy. That only happens in films. They lived happily thereafter. Boy and girl meet, and there's all kinds of problems, then they marry, and then they say they lived happily thereafter. And that's the end of this film. It doesn't happen in real life. But it's not a pessimism. Because if it would be pessimism, if there was no solution to that. In fact, the whole idea of Buddha's teaching is to find a way out of this dukkha. And he proposes the way out. Any questions on this?
No, sir.
Okay. Then let's, anybody?
No, sir. Sir, if there's a lot of disturbance coming from that outside noise, should we mute ourselves? If it's
No, but how will you speak to me?
that is the thing.
Doesn't matter. We can filter out. You can tell me this is not what we are saying. That's okay.
Okay, sir.
Your voice is quite clear, so I'll leave out the backgrounds. Whatever I don't understand, I'll assume it is coming from a neighboring room.
Okay, sir.
Now, the third one is even more difficult. It's called insubstantiality. There is no immutable core in anything. It's sometimes called as impersonality. And the word used is anatta sanya. Anatta means there is no soul, or there is no permanent, immutable essence in beings. Of course, here you can say this is in contrast to the preaching of the other Indic traditions which believe in soul. Soul as something which is immutable and which is not changing. And in view of the difficult nature of this statement, we'll slowly try to understand it. We'll not get into discussion on that. Another is, again, very, very difficult for modern people to understand. There's nothing beautiful in this world. It's called asubhasanya. That if you penetrate behind the appearances, there is no beauty anywhere. It's only appearance. It's only made up in our minds.
So if it is not beautiful, then what is it? Is it
Say it again.
That
Say
is
it
also
again.
perception.
Say it again, please.
Sir, I was saying that if nothing is beautiful, then what is it? Like, if not beautiful, then what?
No, it is what it is. It is just a combination of all things are a combination of elements. You remember when we discussed Rupa, we said they are all made up of earth, air, fire, water, and they are constantly changing. So they appear to be beautiful for some time and then they decay. Non-beautiful means, again, they are intrinsically non-beautiful, not that they don't appear to be beautiful, non-beautiful. That's why it is said appearance versus reality. Appearance-wise, yeah, some things appear beautiful, but because of the law of impermanence, that beauty does not last. So that's in that sense it is said. And of course, if you penetrate deeply, this is a special sanya which has been identified primarily to reduce lust, to reduce the uh, tendency of opposite genders to get attracted towards each other, which was important for monks. But of course, it is important for us also beyond a certain level. If you penetrate into human body deeply, if you go, that's why it is said beauty is skin deep. One of the contemplations that monks do is that you assume, for example, that there is this skin, there is a zip attached to your skin here in the hair at the front, and you can unzip it and just open the skin and have a look inside. So how much beauty will you find there? Imagine if the skin was transparent. Suppose it's a thought experiment. Imagine the skin is there to protect the organs inside, but it is transparent, and we look at each other directly to see only the inner organs. How will it look? How will the beauty appear there? These are the kind of contemplations which are done, which are not kind of figments of imagination or metaphysics, are reality. Are you there, or there is some problem?
So we are here.
I thought the screen had blocked, so maybe you're not there. So that's another important. And then there is the perception of dispassion, which arises from all the above three, from the anicca sanya, dukkha sanya, anatta sanya. If those are established in mind, it gives rise to what's called viraga sanya or dispassion. Because if things are impermanent and you can't get abiding satisfaction in them, then the tendency to seek them and grab them and maximize the sensory pleasures, the tendency falls down. And this is Viragasana is a matter of practice. That we should develop Viragasana. It's not automatic, it has to be developed. Of course, all the sannyas have to be developed. They are well logically understandable, but they need to be developed, cultivated. We have a tendency to forget them. We have a tendency to forget impermanence. We have a tendency to forget the basically unsatisfactory nature of all worldly experiences. We take things personally. This body is mine. The thoughts are mine. The degrees are mine. We take them personally. We don't reflect deeply who is this person who's saying it is mine. So once we are able to really work on them, then you move towards dispassion, which leads to liberation really. So these are therefore termed as aspects of wisdom, or right understanding. And from the psychological perspective, their importance is they help you to reduce conflict, reduce wrong behavior. And let's do some exercise, small exercise here. You can examine what is your perception of a good friend? When did it get formed? Do you today have friends who do not fit into this perception? If yes, what is the reason for this friendship? So then we take 10 minutes. You quietly think and write down on your notebook, and then we can have a sharing of that within the group. We have a small group, so we can share what exactly is your perception of a good friend. And this is a very important bearing in your day-to-day life. I'm sure you realize it. So each one of you in your notebooks, please write down just a few lines for each, few lines to define what do you call a good friend, and then how did this perception was formed, and do all the people whom you call your friends, do they fit into that perception? And if there are some who don't fit into that and yet you think they are your friends, then you may reflect on that also. Okay, so we'll keep quiet for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then let you do this small exercise. Once you're done and ready for sharing, so please raise your hands and tell so that we can have discussion. We can start discussion then on different perceptions and
Bias.
Mhm. Yes, who would start? One of you should start sharing what have you written. Please go ahead. And your name also.
My name is Sumedha, sir,
Okay. Mike.
and my perception of a good friend that I believe is a good friend is somebody that I connect the most to. To me, that person can be person, animal, tree, any creature. That is somebody that I love spending time with, and I can be myself with that person. There's no filter there. I can be myself. I can talk the way I like. I can dress the way I like. I can be myself in front of that person. And to me, that person is also, we also might share similarities. We'll have difference of opinions as well, but we'll also have things that we enjoy doing together. And my perception of a good friend that has been formed, it has been formed over the years by my experiences during the school and then college. So now, earlier the perception used to be different, as we were discussing that perceptions change. So earlier it used to be different. I used to believe that people who are like-minded can only be friends. People from the similar backgrounds can be friends. But now over the years, by the virtue of experiences that life has given me, and also understood the importance of embracing the diversity that is there within each individual. And no, I do not actually have any friends who do not fit in this perception.
Okay,
Means
good.
I can call somebody my friend, but as we're discussing somebody the perception of a good friend, so there is no good friend of mine who does not fit into this perception.
Thank you. Good. Anybody else who would like to say any comment on what Sumedha has said, or anybody has any question to ask? At least we have a small group. We should be able to discuss openly and frankly.
The point of that a person with whom she can be herself and she's free to be herself. She doesn't have to like be somebody else or act like something. So that point is which I've also written, like that is also in my points of having a good friend. So that's
Anything else you've written, or is that the same thing? Anything else also you've written?
yes, sir. So shall I
Yeah,
you-
please go ahead.
so my
Tell me your
perception?
name also so that I can connect.
Yes, sir. My name is Arunima. So my perception of a good friend is someone who makes me feel understood, with whom I can share my deep thoughts and I don't feel like अरे ज़्यादा बोल दिया क्या? या अरे ये नहीं बोलना चाहिए था क्या? तो जिसके साथ I can feel like I can talk it out, whatever it is. And that doesn't make me feel awkward or anything. That makes me feel understood. And at the same time, I'm able to see that that person is also comfortable enough to share his or her thoughts with me. So that is one thing. And secondly, that I'm able to trust that person based on whatever experiences or whatever, I don't know, but I'm having this faith or this trust or that belief in that person that yes, this is a person that
What does
I
trust mean? What does trust mean?
um, in the context that I've written it, like that who's honest with me and who don't keep bad things hidden somewhere inside their mind. Like
Ah, you have to, the more you articulate what does trust mean, what does honest mean, what does a person mean, what does it mean honest?
that whatever it
Suppose,
is,
suppose a person, I say, I would like that person to call that person to be trustworthy, who points out my shortcomings. Would it be acceptable? Eh,
yeah,
who points out things which I do wrong, and he tells me, "Hey, see, this you did wrong."
yes, I think so. But that should not be in a demotivating or in a demoralizing way. It should be in a positive light. Should be there. Ki,
So
हाँ,
he can't be himself with you.
that's why all these points interrelate and then I get a like ऐसा नहीं कि सिर्फ एक point के basis पे I cut it or ऐसा.
Yeah, that's these are the uh, questions which are of great relevance. What do you mean by trustworthy friend? What does it mean? What does it mean to be an honest friend? Trustworthy can mean many things. That if I tell him something or her something, she or he should keep it within her, not broadcast it without my permission. That could be one simple definition. Okay, that if I say something in good faith about me or about somebody, he or she keeps it within himself. It doesn't tell, oh, do the loose talk about me with others or about others with me. How would that feel? If you have a friend who doesn't, you say, yeah, I will not do anything bad tell anything bad about you to others, but he keeps on telling you things wrong about others. Would it be trustworthy?
No sense. If that
So,
happens, I kind of
so you have to be, these are very important things which will matter a lot in our lives. So how do we form perceptions? What criteria we use? Because friendship is something which can last lifelong. I have many friends from my college days with whom I'm friends even today, and it's more than 50 years. We're together from 65 to 17 doing engineering. So it's more than 50 years, but we have extremely good relationships with a few, not all, obviously. 4, 5, 6 people are there such with whom we can say anything. They can say anything to me, I can say anything to them. We don't have any kind of cautions to be observed. The person will get offended or this or that. Okay, good, very good. So let's hear somebody else also who is sitting in between Arunima and Sumedha. Yes, please go ahead.
My name is Prabli.
Okay.
Like similar to what Sumedha and Arunima shared, I also define good friend as someone.
Copy paste तो नहीं हुआ ना ये? Okay.
As someone in front of whom I don't have to pretend or like measure every word that I'm saying or have to put up a show. I can just be myself, and someone who doesn't say something just to please me. they can be honest with me and I can be honest with them. So that is something which I have written. And this kind of definition is formed based on my past experiences and reflecting on my past friendships. So in the past, I have had friends who would be with me and say something when they are with me and then say something else behind my back. So I think reflecting on those kinds of friendships and having those kind of experiences has helped me realize what it means for me to have a good friend. And as to the third point, in the past, I have had relationships which I will not consider as good friendships. And I think that was due to maybe a fear of ending up alone, being lonely. And also because of peer pressure that, okay, if I have to be perceived a certain way, I should belong to this group or I should make effort to be a part of this group. So it was also because of peer pressure. But now I can say that I don't have any friends who do not fit in this particular definition.
Okay, good. Next, somebody behind Arunima. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. My name is Simran.
Okay.
Sir, I think I connect with Prableen's point like earlier, my perception of friendship was also something on the outer appearances, like how the group is looking. Is it what we call as something cool from the outside? And you need to make effort to be a part of that group so that you get the acceptance of the people around you. And of course, like not ending up alone. But over the years, I have realized that it was not healthy for me to be in such an environment, in such a condition with people who were something on your face, but something totally someone else behind you. So I think, friends for me is someone who just accept you of who you truly are. And for me, like it's not just the other person who needs to make the effort to be your friend, but also you connect with them. And they are able to truly tell you all your good part and as well as all your bad parts and just be honest with you. So yeah.
Okay. And then two more ladies. Yes, please go ahead.
So, for perception, my perception of
First name so that I can begin to connect.
so my name is Diksha.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So for my perception of a good friend, I've written that someone who cares and someone who's a well-wisher and someone who gives you space and helps you to progress and learn. And probably like does not intend to harm you. There are of course conflicts that happen between friends or any relationships for that matter. But even in those conflicts, there's a difference between intending to hurt someone versus just a differing of opinions and all of those things. So that is something that I think I take in a high regard. And then someone who attempts to understand you and be there for you. And there's this one thing that I've like over the years. So there are certain friends with whom you can it's like you can pick up right where you left off, even because people have gone different ways after school and then after our undergraduate colleges, and we might even talk after months at times or meet after years at times. But with some friends, it feels like you pick up right where you left off, and that's something that I really value. So that's what I've written. And then this perception, I cannot exactly pinpoint one major incident or some major thing that led to this perception being formed, but it has surely changed over the years. Like I've written earlier, my perception used to be maybe 6-7 years back, my perception used to be more along the lines of a good friend is someone who spends a lot of time with you, who shares a lot of secrets. You can share a lot of secrets and matters. Then you have things in common, you have things to relate to, who's there for you exactly when you need them. So those are the things which I used to think, but the perception has changed over the year. as like Sumedh and everyone pointed out that with the experience that we have had over the years, and then I feel I do have certain friends who do not, as I listed different aspects in my first answer, so who might not kind of fit in all of those aspects or criteria, if we may call them. Because the perception has also the perception as it was being built over the years, many good friendships were also being formed. So they remain probably because of attachment, even though if they do not fit into all the sort of aspects that I mentioned, but there's a certain kind of attachment that has been formed over the years, and thus I might call them still, I still call them good friends. So yeah, that is the whole thing for me.
So those friends who may not fit your own perception, but because of some attachment due to other family or friends or other acquaintances, you still continue with them. That's what you're saying, is it right?
Also, just one more thing, as like we were discussing, so a lot of the answers that we heard, I was also thinking at times like we are mentioning friends with whom I can I don't have a filter, or I can share it in some way, but it has more to do with how I am than how the other person is. Like that is the thing. That is of course I think how the other person is, as Arima mentioned, if the other person is honest, if the other person is sort of transparent, then you can be yourself with them, but it probably has more to do with how I am also with the other person.
Okay. Yes, please, yourself now.
So my name is Sonal.
Okay.
Yes,
Go ahead, Sonal, yes, please.
So sorry, sir.
Please go ahead. Don't feel that you're the last one. Okay, one more.
Sir, my perception of a good friend is someone who understands. So, what I feel about understanding is that sometimes you like verbally you communicate to the person and then the person understands. But sometimes you just not want to communicate, you do not want to share anything. Then also I feel somebody should understand that कि, okay नहीं बताना तो that is also fine. And also as Diksha mentioned, related to this is giving space. So because sometimes in a like if I'm feeling upset, like people around me would be concerned कि क्या बात है. Sometimes they pressure you so much कि बताओ. So I think sometimes you need that space. You do not want to like share, not because like you don't trust them, but it's because that you think like you will figure it out on your own self. So like having that space and respecting, so like respecting each other. And a friend, I feel, is someone who motivates you. Like they push you. They're not like pull you down. Rather, they'll encourage you, motivate, and support you to go ahead. And like they have a good will for you. And likewise, I also have the same for them. Like I do not want that competitive spirit to come, because coming to when was it formed, I felt this in my graduation, like when I did my bachelor's. So at the time, some of my friendships, like they just deteriorated, because at the time of our entrances, some of the friends, they became very competitive, and like they were not sharing information and all those kind of things when they come in between. And friends who not fit in this perception. So initially my perceptions were like they have also evolved, and as a result, some of my relationships have also evolved with time. So initially, me and my friend, as Diksha mentioned, like everything we'll do together, we'll share all the secrets. But now, moving on with that same person only, we have come to realize it's okay. And like it's not that I have to text you every day if you are my good friend. We realize that, and we like there are some friends with whom I would just like talk like after like 6 months, but still we have that very same bond, and there's that connection that I feel. So I don't think like there is no one, but I think if I work towards it and both of us work, so we can gradually together we can evolve.
Good, very good. Yes, now the only boy in the class. Please go ahead. Yes, I didn't see you. Are you attending for the first time today?
No, sir, I have attended every class.
He just sits
Is it?
outside of the zone.
You're sitting far away, is it? So that I should not see you.
Generally, I'm not a
Yeah.
great fan of camera.
Oh, but he is.
But you could not. Yeah, we're not making your photograph for say any particular purpose. We just want to see you because of the situations not being able to come. Okay, anyway. There is, please introduce yourself.
Sir, I am Sir Gautam Raj. And so my perception of good friendship formed over a period of time. Like I interacted with people, and then I just went along with this. Acha, this is something that is being termed as good friendship. This is something that I like. This is something that I don't prefer. This is how it was formed. It wasn't never a concrete structure, and it never will be. And I don't think it is now, because I have just jumbled few words right now, and I couldn't.
You can read it out for us, doesn't matter.
I
Sometimes just mentioning keywords is enough. Go ahead.
I couldn't put it in one word, because every individual I am close to is completely different from the other person. So I couldn't. Matlab, it's not that there isn't commonalities, but there are so much diversity that there was a parameter that I could.
You can find out about the commonalities. Okay.
A few of the things I would like to mention. One is the communication aspect, because communication is something that I value, and I value that I communicate. I set myself the same standard key. If the other person should have communicated in this system, then I should also have communicated the same. So this is the one thing I value. I prefer the communication should be there, honesty should be there. It should be an honest approach from both of the side, and the care, the respect should be there. One important.
Please don't use the word should be. We're not writing an essay. We're writing our own present status. What do you think? If you think there are these 10 friends I have, who are diverse, these are the common qualities which I value in them. That's why. So it should be in first person, not in third person. Okay? Yeah. Please go ahead.
Next is one thing I like is for example, people have that think, acha, this is how it should be. This is how things should go along. And sometimes it happens that you speak that a lot, and you never tend to bring that into action. So I generally tries to do one thing, that whatever I speak of the ideals, this is how things can be, and this is how I prefer. I tend to set that ideal key. Okay, this is how I behave in the situation, and I expect on the same line, or on the same aspect, you can behave too, and it sets an example. Key means how I prefer things to be. And next is key, one who provides the space to be who you are, and as well as I provide that space to the other person to be how they want to be.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So you can sit here. Don't worry. There's nothing wrong in sitting there. So you can see there are, of course, between you a lot of commonalities, so it's good. But some diversity also has been seen. And this perception would keep on changing. You know? And the Buddha writes a lot about friendship. You know, I don't know, you may not have expected it. He talks a lot about what he calls as good friendship, or you use the word Kalyan Mitra. You understand the word Kalyan Mitra? What does it mean?
Sir, you didn't tell about who you
What?
consider
So you didn't tell about who you consider as a good friend.
Yeah, I have quite a few. Yeah? And obviously, many of the things you have said are true for me also. But I value those who are really very kind of forthright in pointing out our differences and pointing out anything which they don't like in me. I value that friendship very much. And I have a few young people now because acting as a teacher of meditation and advisor in practice of Buddha's teachings. There are some very good young friends, one of whom is now a monk actually, who have, if I were to use it in the normal colloquial language, has really bothered me for years with questions and questions and questions. But I value so much because my own understanding of the subject, understanding of the teachings of Buddha, and our joint work together in the form of just dialectic, questions. I have 10 different questions on what I have said in the talk yesterday. And then those questions would be asked and very strongly debated and not agreed upon. And I really value that much very greatly because that has benefited me a lot personally. And it has benefited our group in terms of the clarity of my presentations. So that has been a very important thing in my life.
Sir, a question on that.
Yeah,
Sir,
it's good.
good friends, but you also differ on your opinions with them.
Yeah, certainly.
So how to not make it bitter? Because sometimes when you see
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
kind
That depends on our ability to depersonalize. That's the point, to see the good the good points in, one of my best friends in IIT who sadly passed away due to corona 2 years back. We, some 75 onwards, we were constantly in touch with although we were in the same department, but we had different interests. The field of research was, he was working as I called high temperature, I was working in low temperature. So we were different. But then the spiritual inclinations, we were together. We used to sit after lunch for during the first few years and study all the Indian scriptures, studied from Vedanta and Aurobindo, and all whatever was available at that. Adi Shankara, then Vivekananda, then other teachers, everything. Upanishads, Gita. And then, of course, in 85, when I shifted to Buddha's teaching, he also joined with me. He also shifted, and we studied together for a long time. For, right till, but a time came in somewhere when another teacher who came to IIT, he got impressed by him and he shifted in that direction while I continued to shift in the work in the Buddha's teachings. So there was a difference and we disagreed on that. Now, there's a very major thing, that I am pursuing, we have started pursuing same spiritual journey, and then there's a fork. I go in this direction, he goes in this direction. But I have respect for him, he has respect for me. And it continues. And in our professional life, we were working together on many projects, in spite of the differences. It never happened that the difference would create a bitterness or would create my looking down upon him or him considering me as a snob who's not ready to change or whatever. So it really depends on how much mature you are in absorbing diversity. When you say we love diversity, do we really? You make sure, you really make sure whether you really love it, because there's a issue involved there in handling diverse opinions and still remaining friends. You see, so then there's a very beautiful example of a friend who passed away now, and we had a best of relationship right till he passed away. You see, so it is possible. I'm not trying to say that it was ideal or something, but it is possible, certainly. It's possible to have respect for each other's work, even though they may be of different kinds. Okay.
yes, sir.
And many of even in my Buddhist practices, I have shifted from what was the what I followed for 25 years from Goenkaji's tradition. I've shifted to another tradition. So some of the people who are in that tradition with me for 25 years, they're still my good friends. They still consult me on practices, and I have no difficulty in addressing them. And they would invite me, and I would go and talk. So these are very fundamental changes. They're not minor things. That you are following a path and you change, and still you have respect for each other, because you can see the value of that, and he can see the value of what I am doing. So that's what really genuine friendship entails. That you can handle the difference of opinion in a very lovely, affectionate, kind manner. What is at the back of it is a sense of goodwill. A sense of goodwill. Friendship really means goodwill for each other. And we want others good. We want benefit him. There's, in Hindi is a beautiful word called sadbhavna. You have a good feeling for others. दुर्भावना नहीं है, सद्भावना है. तो जिसके प्रति सद्भावना होगी उससे मित्रता हो ही जाएगी. And Buddha called such people as Kalyana Mitra. In Pali it is Kalyana Mitra. In Hindi, Sanskrit is called Kalyan Mitra. मतलब वैसा मित्र जो मेरे कल्याण में सहायक हो. He said that is the one you should cherish. And in one of the discourses, he says, if you have a good Kalyan Mitra, that is enough for your spiritual practice. You don't need anything else. He'll take you to along with you, he'll take you to the final goal. If the Kalyan Mitra is really good and who understands the world, understands the teaching properly. He says in a discourse, one of his close disciples said, Lord, it seems to me that having a good friend is really half of the spiritual life. He says, no, it's not half, it is full of it. If you have a really worthy friend, Kalyan Mitra, truly, then you can be rest assured that he will point out to your faults, help you to overcome them, find out what is the right way. You will do it to him, he will do it to you, and mutually supporting each other, you'll follow the path and reach the path of freedom from suffering. So having a really good friend in our worldly life as well as spiritual life is a great value. Okay. Good. So now I think, as you know, we in IIT are used to giving assignments, so you'll have to bear with me. So there's an assignment homework for you, but please note it down. There's a very audacious perception. It says there are no problems in life. Now you may get upset just by hearing this. But then it says there are only situations. Situations may be pleasant, unpleasant, fine, that's okay. They may be gravely unpleasant, they may be excitedly pleasant, but they don't cause suffering by themselves. It is how we respond to them that causes suffering. If you respond wisely, you grow in the spiritual sense, okay? In the sense of purification of the mind. If you respond unwisely, you'll suffer. Most pleasant situation, you can respond unwisely and suffer gravely. Now reflect on that, okay? And write a small note based on your own experience or your friends or relatives or maybe somebody about whom you know. Not a hope, but actual person who you think in a very difficult situation he responded wisely and that became a part of his growth, or a person who didn't respond wisely even in a pleasant situation and suffered. So write a short essay on that and submit it to me at the email address which is indicated there. That's the email address I use for this purpose. I have been conducting various classes. So submit it as quickly as possible. Because it's not you have to just sit quietly, meditate for half an hour, and then whatever comes to the mind, hopefully this would be quite meaningful. Yeah. Is it okay, Suneet, to give assignments, or it's not a part of?
It's actually required in the course.
Okay. So this becomes the first assignment. In the series, we'll have number of assignments of them. Very concise assignments focused on the main topic of our work, which is freedom from suffering. Okay. Fine, so we can conclude unless you have any comment about this assignment or any other question to ask. We conclude our discussions on perception today.
Sir, about
Yeah.
sir, about the activity that we just did, I had something to share.
Please go ahead.
So when this question, I was answering the question that how my perception of having a good friend, of a good friend form, I had written things like based on my previous experiences, I got to know that this is how I see a good friend, and this is I see this is not a good friend. So I realized that the definition of having a good friend and not so good friend depends, for me, depends on the permanence of the relationship. Like when I was looking for the qualities in a person that I consider a good friend, I was in my mind, I was going back to those relationships that are still intact in my life, that have been there for a long time. So those qualities that were in those relationships, I attributed them with the definition of good friend, and the relationships that are maybe broken or whatever, some clashes came between, so which are not intact till now, which have been impermanent abhi ke context mein. So I did not consider those as examples of a good friend. So I could connect this thing with the lecture we had, like the discussion we had previous to this activity, that even in forming a perception of having a good friend, or like something so simple and so important for us, we are looking for, like I'm looking for permanence, and uh, how eventually everything is not permanent, and so we can connect it here also.
Yeah, so using permanence as a criteria for goodness may not be a very wise thing to do, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Because even if situations, circumstances force us to part ways, we may still have the memory of that person being a good friend, even if we stop connecting with him or her because of certain geographical or family or other reasons, isn't it? I, for example, resigned from the Goenkaji's tradition, but I have greatest regard for some of my friends there because I consider them to be wonderful people. I don't have any regrets or any grudges against anybody. No, that's a matter of understanding. That's a matter of being grateful. There are various other good qualities, which prevent you from kind of expecting permanence in things. And we'll discuss them one by one. Gratitude is one such quality. If anybody has done even a little good to me, I have gratitude for him or her. And that remains there in the mind that this person was so kind to me. And that's a positive quality which we inculcate and generate so that our mind remains positive. It doesn't get into negativity about people just because they have parted ways. It all happens, as you grow with your relations. It may be with parents, with siblings. It does happen, but that doesn't make us bitter. Not necessarily, sorry, I should say, that doesn't necessarily make us bitter. It depends on our wisdom. Now, suppose as a parting, I can put you a question. How many of you will treat any of your parent as a good friend? Difficult, isn't it? Or a sibling. your brother or sister.
Yes, I can still imagine the sibling, yeah,
Mm.
but not parents.
I'm not saying you make a commitment here. I'm just saying you reflect on that. Why is it that a parent cannot be a good friend?
Yeah,
Okay,
sir.
I'll leave it.
As I got older, my father was more of a friend than a father.
Hmm.
But then
It
I
depends. Yeah. That's
my-
what I thought it's good for young people to reflect on that. A person with whom we are living for a good part of our life, why he or she cannot be a friend. So I'm not saying it should be and why not, and then no. Just asking you to reflect on it, as people who are studying psychology, human behavior, emotions, feelings, we should be able to really reflect on such things. They have a lot of bearing on our day-to-day life. Okay, thank you. It's time for us to